Today we are going to completely disassemble this running and driving and slightly body damaged 2003 Silverado so we can harvest its parts and build my 1500 horsepower four-wheel drive drag truck. Now, I'm mainly after the body parts, but there's a lot of other good stuff here that we can use on some other projects, namely my all-wheel drive S10 build that's going to be coming up in the near future. But today is all about getting the parts that we need from the donor truck, and by the end of the day, it's going to look something like this. So, last time we left things off, we just got to work on the bed. I pulled it off. There was some pretty horrendous installation work done in order to fit a gooseneck hitch. In short, it looked like that, and now it looks like that. They chopped out that bedroom. Anyway, yeah, that is the bed, but we still need to get the rest of the parts. So let's get to it. Now I am going to pull the bumper off, although realistically I'm probably not going to use it on the drag truck, but I want to have one just in case. And once it's gone, it's gone. That's not the right size for that. And so from here, I guess I just start with the big chunks. This door, logical next step. These doors are like the easiest to take off of pretty much any vehicle I've ever worked on. Pretty much got one bolt on each hinge, one bolt for the travel extension limiter thing. Get the plugs out, and then, if I recall, this kind of lifts off. If you're strong enough. Yeah. It's front-wheel drive only right now. We're about to run out of gas, but that's kind of perfect. Well, this is pretty much the end of the line for this Silverado as we know it, because as soon as I shut the engine down, it is lights out. I mean, we'll put all the pieces to good use, but for this truck as a whole, how it rolled off the assembly line, its soul, or whatever you want to call it, it's going to be scattered into multiple different projects. So, let's get to it. Now, part of the reason why I wanted this cat-eye front end is because supposedly there's a little bit more room behind this grill to fit an intercooler. Because I know on my 2000 truck, it is really, really tight. Well, our pile of parts slash clutter is definitely growing. And while we got the AC machine running over there evacuating the refrigerant from the truck, I just kind of figured I'll explain my thought process here. We're just going to be removing the cab from the frame, probably temporary. I think I'll end up putting some of it back on. I will be cutting up a fair amount of the cab actually for a few pieces of sheet metal that I need. But for how easy it is to take these things apart, I mean, these Chevy trucks are like Legos practically. I just figure it'll be a little bit simpler and easier, since I have to take a lot of this stuff apart anyway, just to unbolt the cab, undo all the electrical connections, which I've already done here. See, this is the main like dash connection that goes into the fuse block. And I've got a lot of the lines undone. I figure it's just simpler to get rid of all that stuff, lift the cab off. That way I can take the engine, the transmission, the transfer case off, probably just as one big piece. And a lot of this front end stuff I might not need because I already have another core support. I will, of course, take off the headlight brackets and stuff because I need a lot of the cat eye, quote unquote, front end parts. Because the frame I have is actually like a 2001, the bubble eye as people call it. Before I ended up buying this truck, I already actually bought the new front frame bumper brackets, which you need. I will grab the tow hooks, but I might just, because I don't need it, leave the radiator, the core support, the A-frame, because like I said, I have all of that. But of course, the main thing, or one of the main things left I need to grab is the whole dashboard, because this dash and wiring and basically the brains of this truck are going to be going into the other body. So I think where we're at right now, as soon as the AC machine is done, all I've got to do is drain the coolant to disconnect the heater hoses and disconnect the brake booster, and then I should be able to have everything removed, and the cab is going to go away, well, or go up in the air. Everything should be pretty much disconnected here. Brakes are undone, steering's undone. It may need to like fish it out, but I took it off of the box. Probably forgot something.
Something's caught. Oh, lift on the frame again.
Okay.
Be able to come forward with the frame. I think backwards, because it looks like if you go forward, the back one's gonna hit too. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Yeah. Hey, I'm good about putting my hand in places. It's fine.
Use a finger on the floor though.
This side's clear.
After I bought the cab for the drag truck this spring, I initially thought I could get everything that I needed to make it a complete truck from a junkyard, which I could have done. But the more and more I thought about it, the more I realized, I just got to get a complete parts truck. And this is why right here. Yeah, we've got a cab off, we've got a chassis sitting here, but there are so many little bits and pieces that I would have needed. The core support, which I did already buy another one of, but like the headlight mount brackets, the little rubber pieces, the bumper brackets, all the stuff I need for the front end conversion. And then that's just sheet metal. That's just to make a truck that looks like a truck. And then on top of that, we have all the stuff needed to make it work. And I would have been nickel and dimed to death picking up all these pieces one at a time from a junkyard. I mean, we've got a fuse block, we've got a chassis wiring harness. That would have taken forever to extract from a junkyard. Who knows what it would have cost. And yeah, I'm gonna modify the heck out of this stuff because we're gonna have no ABS. This truck has an electric transfer case, which we're gonna convert to a manual floor shift. So basically, I'm going to take this whole wire harness that goes all the way back down the chassis, completely strip it out, or strip it apart and take out all the stuff that I don't need. Same thing on the engine bay, because we are going to be running a Holley Dominator EFI. I don't necessarily need to have the original computer to make the engine run, but I am going to keep it just because without this computer, my OEM gauges won't work because we have to have a few sensors like the cam sensor, crank sensor, basically redundant, sending signals to both the OEM computer and the terminator or dominator that's going to sit in there, just to make sure like the factory gauges work. Because again, that's one of those things that I'm a stickler about. I got to have factory gauges. So anyway, yeah, it's definitely a lot of work to buy a complete truck basically and take it apart. But in the long run, to me, really, that's the only way to go. So from here on out, I just got a few things left to strip off of this before we get rid of it. Obviously, engine and transfer case, those are the valuable bits. We'll maybe put them in the S10, I don't know. I've debated whether or not to keep the core support because I do have another, but I might take this one off just because there's probably some little doodad. Obviously, headlight wiring harness, I need that. Like, you know, the temp sensor there. That's a very small, simple part, and all it does is make that little number on the rear view mirror work for the outside temperature. And yeah, it's a race truck, but I want to know what the outside temperature is in my race truck. Just like that, the four-wheel drive harness is totally separate. Now, separate the rear chassis harness. Which one thing I'm debating about keeping eventually is we got these speed sensors. There may be a way I can integrate these into like some traction control system for the Holly later on. So I may keep these, sort of, but we'll see. Get the bucket on both sides. You get enough slack, maybe hook like through there.
Going. Just gonna be a little bit of an angle. Get past the steering. Yeah, just come back a little bit.
Chris, is that the point where you can maybe pick it up and swing the transfer case like over the frame side? Hey, Thomas, keep jacking up.
Fuel lines or brake lines.
Actually, don't pull back towards you because you're going to a higher spot. Go forward a little bit more. Let me see if I can have
You do that without dropping it?
I'm trying.
All right.
Slow movements.
Whoa. There we go. Cool.
What are you going to do with the frame?
I don't know, you want it?
I'm going to call ABC if they'll take the frame. And
It's gotta be worth something. I was debating whether or not to bolt the cab back on it and just get rid of it all at once, or...
I just kind of like those three tires, those three wheels.
Well, you can buy 4 though, you can't buy just 3.
No, that one's mismatched. In Sesame Street, which one of these things don't belong?
Well, that's your problem. Because what am I gonna do with 1? With 4, I can do burnouts. With 1, I can do nothing.
What are you going to put on this to roll it?
I don't know. Well, I was gonna leave it on this for now, at least get the frame, depending on what I decide, get the frame outside. and then either just take it off and let the tow truck drag it up on, or if someone wants to buy it with wheels, then they can have the wheels too. I had to stop working on the truck just for a little bit because I made a pretty big mess when I took the engine out. Between the coolant and the power steering fluid and the trans fluid that kind of dripped out from disconnecting all those lines, it was just time to like stop work, clean the shops, mop the floor, then sweep it, because between the fluids we spilled and all the dust and dirt that falls off of a vehicle that's been on the road for 20 years, we had a pretty big mess on our hands. But now, thankfully, everything is mopped and clean and we're ready to continue work. I kind of started organizing parts a little bit. There's a few odds and ends I threw away, just trying to, again, because space is at a premium, and I'm trying to keep as organized as possible. So we still need to tidy up this, but this is mostly body stuff that's going to go onto the other truck. Like I put the fenders and stuff behind the bed, and a lot of this is just the plastic front end stuff. Over here, we have a lot of the powertrain. We have all the chassis harnesses that we'll need for the drag truck. Of course, we get the 5.3, which I'm debating on putting into the S10. Still would love to have a 6.2, but just for the cost, and since I already have one, the 5.3 is very appealing. We get a few odds and ends here, and then of course the chassis. This is pretty much at this point like scrap. Not that I'm gonna scrap it. I'd like to try to get rid of it or give it to someone who can use it, but I've got everything I need off of here, and there's a lot still left. The rear axle is bent. Did drive the S10 to work today. That's a fun little truck to drive. It would be nice to keep some of this front end stuff, like have another diff and have another couple of CV axles, but honestly, I already have 2 front diffs anyway. And at this point, it's just about space. I really need to free up some space. So we'll try to get rid of that as soon as we possibly can. I think I have a few leads already, in fact. And we're almost done with our teardown project. Like, the only thing that we have left, really, is the inside of the cab. So I need to pull the dash, because that's one of the most important pieces that I needed. And of course, all the wiring that goes along with it. And then up front here, just a few, like I'll grab the cowling and the wipers. I don't know if we'll keep wipers working, but probably, you might as well. Obviously no HVAC, we talked about that a million times. I will pull that off, but I am gonna be running Hydro Boost, not a vacuum boost. And the steering shaft, like I definitely need that. So we are almost done. So we'll get the last little bit of this stuff yanked out of the truck and call it a day. I'm sorry, you must have the wrong number. Thanks. Supposedly, all these trucks, like from 03 to 07, had a name up here. So we are about to find out what this truck is named. No name. It's the no-name truck. There we go. It won't come in one huge chunk, but you gotta get the top off. And I think the column comes out separate. But then once you have that, there's a series of bolts like there and some there. And I think we can get maybe a few more wiring connections, but I think once we do that, we get kind of everything on one chunk. What goes where? So I got the heat unplugged on this side. You've got that big junction unplugged underneath. Column is out.
This bracket still holding part of it.
Oh, and then this, I think, if you want to grab that guy, needs to come off. so there's 2 big ones here, 2 big ones there, and there's a couple of big ones way down below the windshield. See how good our aim is here. All right, did we do it? Definitely a safety glasses activity. Man, that thing is fast. The wall. Oh, there's one more. Oh, I guess that was it. We'll kind of lay it down and see if we're hung up on anything.
Yeah, there's a big chunk of harness. It goes through the firewall.
It should be undone.
Something else catching?
What's that one up top?
The where of this?
Yep. Where does that go to? Just a little while later, we basically have every last usable part that I need stripped from the donor truck. So we are left with a rolling chassis, which I want to keep the wheels off of, but I do need to unload the frame because I already have one. And then we have basically a body shell. We've got the 5.3 4L60 and I believe an NP246 transfer case, all in one big chunk here. The plan is maybe to use it in the S10, I'm not sure. On the cab here, basically everything useful is stripped out. I may pull a little bit of the firewall out simply because there is some slight damage on the cab that I have on the other truck, which I may need, but basically that's it. I mean, we've got all the body work kind of piled up and stashed away. I've tried to organize and clean things up and get parts put away so they don't take up the whole shop space, but yeah, that was kind of fun to be able to take this truck from running and driving to nothing. So many little parts that I'm glad that I got. And now I just have to get rid of the rest. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. I think the next video that you see, I will be assembling at least the body parts onto the drag truck so I can kind of start the mock-up for the more important stuff like roll cage, turbo system. We have the fuel tank, but the rest of the fuel system, drive lines, exhaust, the list goes on and on. But until we have a foundation to build from, we can't do anything, which is why I'm so glad we got the donor truck. So the build begins next time.